Hello and welcome to ScottMoonWriter.com. I'll be reading Boss Part 2. Ungrateful. The ship dumped them on the first smuggler's world they came to, with both pilots cursing Johnny Boss and the Ogre Fist Company in 3 to 5 languages. It was hard to say for sure. One pilot had foamed at the mouth, thick white goo flying on the wings of his profanity. They can have the MK8, what's left of it after Nightmare ripped the guard out of it. I don't think they want that. It's evidence, Davenport said in a low voice. Make it work. I don't have anything else to pay their extra fees. Johnny left Davenport to deal with them and slept the rest of the trip. Later, when he'd paid the final bill and sent the pilots on their way, he parked his mecha in the first secure storage area he could find with an attached boarding house. He took a real shower with real water and spent a considerable amount of time shaving. After that, he ate 2 meals in one setting and went to check on his wounded at the local guild clinic. Even a run-down smuggler's hole like this had certain amenities available to mercenary units in good standing, which he was, if not for much longer. Marnie smiled from where she sat, with nanite IV bags plugged into both of her legs and her neck. Good to see you, boss. I'll be up and running in no time. He patted her on the shoulder. I know you will, Marnie. That's what I like about you and the rest of the OFC. You never quit, never surrender, and never use one bullet when 2 will do. He stepped into the hallway to find Davenport waiting. The man chewed his fingernails like they were the only protein source left in the galaxy. Give me the bad news, Davenport. His exo stared at him and exhaled slowly. I have to admit I'm surprised we lived through that debacle. I'd do it again, don't get me wrong. Don't dance around it, just tell me what you've got to say. Davenport looked at his boots, then stood and stepped closer. That punk kid we rescued has ditched us again. I don't know what he's so afraid of, but he's on the run like no one I've ever seen. Johnny slammed his fist against the clinic wall. Several people emerged from their rooms in search of the cause of the noise. The next several moments were a blur as Davenport, in a weird reversal of roles, tried to calm him and escort him from the facility. Spaceport. Heat defined the disembarkment quarter of Nemes City, the second largest spaceport on Callista. The temperature was bad enough. The constant roar of engines coming down in the spaceport landing pads could drive a person crazy. Johnny Boss and the OFC moved away from the pad as quickly as possible. Sweat weighed down the haptic uniform inside Johnny's CASPer, causing him to wish he had his helmet on and his suit sealed against the environment. One of Lamart's biggest modifications to the Ogre Fist mechas was making them work with the helmet off, a jury-rigged power-saving mode. Johnny squinted through the glare of the late afternoon. The dry air made him thirsty, and the smog from the industry of 500,000 residents scratched his throat. A sunburn cracked the exposed flesh where his scarf didn't cover his face and his gloves didn't cover his fingers at the first knuckle. I know we're tired and beat up, he said. Just keep moving. I don't want to stop here, not until we find Jessup. Johnny wanted to close his suit and turn on the internal climate control, but didn't have the extra fuel for such luxuries. Hauling his passenger was already draining the MK7 CASPer, all the more annoying considering the 6-lane elevated highway not far off the ground where cars raced away from the city, probably heading to a nightclub or cozy little baby factory in the suburbs while I drive this mecha towards the next contract. Down here on the ground, life felt primitive. Mechs like Johnny Boss and his company of hot-blooded fighters didn't do sports bars or tract homes. Graffiti covered the pillars and nearby buildings and ground cars that lingered too long in one place. Johnny smiled at an image of fictional street kids painting his company as they limped toward their objective. I need to sleep, take in some calories, forget about this mess for a day or 3 or 20. Where's the pit? Cheeto Briggs said, feet dangling from the back of Johnny's MK7. Cheeto had lost his entire CASPer after the Ultramax battle and wasn't too proud to ride. Facing backward seemed to bother him. Johnny felt the scrappy kid, twisting this way and that to look around as the battered remnants of the Ogre Company marched toward the Merc Quarter. Everything was old and raw in this part of Nemes City. The first buildings had been carved from red rock with yellow veins of worthless minerals scribbling everything like the graffiti of a lunatic god. Walls were thick enough to withstand biannual dust storms that had been worse prior to terraforming attempts. There were prefabricated structures converted from temporary outposts to the permanent facilities. Designed to last 3 years, why not use them for 100? He longed for the early days in Bartertown on Karma, much closer to Earth than this hellhole. The farther a merc went from Bartertown, the less likely he was to return. Everyone understood this fact. A fortress strong enough to withstand the assault of monsters who would never come and orbital bombardments that would never be allowed dominated the heights of Nemes City Quarter. Johnny Boss, commanding officer of the Ogre Fist Limited Liability Fighting Company, paused in the street. The shadow of Fort Makarani should offer a waft of cool air, but didn't. Beyond what natives called the First City and what everyone else called the Merc Ghetto were highways reaching across barren landscapes to connect cities and mining towns and desperate farms. Mechs weren't allowed on the high-speed thoroughfares. Callista wasn't Earth, where human mercenaries were high rollers and rock stars. Traveling the planet at will in full battle regalia wasn't allowed by the peacemakers, which probably made sense. Johnny Boss wasn't in a pro-cop mood right now. Jessup Moran, one of his quietest but best fighters, had been beaten within an inch of his life not far from here and sent to the Ultramax for murder. One rogue cop has sent his doomed odyssey in motion.